Welcome to Momentum Monday. Today is November 5th, 2023. Howard, how do you feel about that late big rally in the market?
Well, I don't think I was bullish, but we were not bearish. We were just like, don't short stocks there. I don't remember what we said last week. I was tired, but we were definitely showing how negative everybody was. And that's the thing about markets. It's a really good lesson this week, Ivan, of why indexing and staying investing matters more than you can't catch this week if you're trying to time the market. You know, you were underinvested going into Monday, but for good reason. You manage your own money for yourself. But if you really want to be an investor, you got to stay in the market. And I think the market just did what no one thought. I mean, I would pull up the VIX to really show people, because the bounce, you saw the support. We talked about it last week. But you know, it was Sunday night. Yeah, if you told me the VIX was going to fall 50%, I think it came down to 14 at the close on Friday from the low 20s. So I think we'll know more this week, but that was a hell of a rally, is what I would say. What do you see?
Everything kind of coincided with the FOMC meeting we had last Wednesday. If you remember, last weekend I said that indices are oversold. They're overdue for a bounce, and maybe the FOMC meeting is going to act as a catalyst. And this is exactly what we saw. We actually saw a change in narrative on Wednesday when Powell said that inflation is not their major concern right now, that currently the risks are balanced between inflation and recession, and this is why they're just going to keep the interest rates the way they are. They're not going to most likely raise them again. This was enough for the market to rally and to assume that, you know what, they're probably done raising and they're probably going to start cutting at some point in the second half of next year. We saw all of the stocks that are super sensitive to interest rates that been crushed in the past year and a half, 2 years. They really bounced the most. Like all those regional banks, biotech, all those like the junkiest stocks you can think of that were down the most.
Right. The companies with no earnings.
Exactly, because like interest rates matter the most to them because they're the ones that they need to refinance at much higher rates and actually survive. I mean, many of them are kind of priced for bankruptcy or almost bankruptcy. So when there is a light of hope a little bit, you know, it's like normal for them to bounce the most. And we saw, for example, Nasdaq 100, it is the best holding index overall. They had a false breakdown the previous weeks, and then, you know, from failed move come fast reversals. This is exactly what we saw. But the index that's been really weak for the past 5 years, basically it's been flat for the past 5 years, and it was super oversold. Look at the candles here. We had 3 back-to-back super accumulation days.
Hang on, let me just see that, because last week we were talking about all the distribution.
Yeah, but there's been a lot of distribution. But last week, the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, look at those increasing volume candles.
Yeah, I didn't see that coming. I was like, avoid small caps.
We haven't really seen that since June. And June was the beginning of a pretty powerful summer rally, like June, July rally. It started the same way with 3 pretty big accumulation day here for the Russell 2000. You can see that huge candle here.
Go out a little longer in the week because small caps is interesting. And again, it was interest rate sense because they're the small banks and the regional banks in there. And I still don't think that's the play. I mean, the real thing here is not just coming back into more resistance. I think the big news item is Microsoft. I think there's some big trends that I've noticed, right? So Microsoft, you know, relative to Google was starting to catch up. And if we look at it, that next to Google, which is now just still below that, just got back above the 130, which is just no man's land still. You got to prove itself because there's a big gap. Microsoft is a leader. Ozempic is a leader. Lilly.
NPO and Lilly, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you have three leaders. ANET is a new one, leader.
Which one?
ANET. ANET.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So you're starting to see, in this company, no one's ever heard of it. There's like no followers. You go back and look at the monthly. It's ridiculous. No one talks about this, right? Great company. It's only got what, a 66 billion. Again, I don't know. I just started to look at it just to follow, but there's new leaders, right? And now you think about where America is going to go, right? And I don't want to get too granular here, but what's going to happen in America? Everything that you thought you knew changed October 7th. Well, sorry, everything you thought you knew changed when interest rates started going up, meaning the market's now cheering the Fed just saying maybe we won't raise. Not a cut, they're just saying maybe we won't raise. Okay, so interest rates are here to stay, right? America has bigger problems now. You know what the bigger problem is? Defense. You know where America is going to get approval for eternity once they start selling the fear of terrorism is the defense sector. Okay, so everybody who's relevant in Silicon Valley that moved from crypto to AI, there's now already 10, I've noticed in the venture community, 10 defense venture conferences. And guess where the hot spot's going to be? DC. Just as everybody moved to Stanford, everybody in Virginia and the East Coast now is going to be relevant because DC's got to rebudget for defense. Guess what everybody's watching? The Iron Dome, which Israel deployed. Have you followed this? Like to knock down missiles, rockets. Do you think America doesn't want full Iron Dome for the whole country? And I think the other thing that we noticed, and these are big trend changes, right? You're going to need big capital to enter this space, which is why the companies with cash, like Microsoft, and the companies with cash. But so you know what you're going to need next is fences. But guess what? What Hamas proved is that fences don't work. The best fences in the world can still be taken down if you storm them. So defense is going to be the big story. So I don't know what the defense index is, Ivan. Do we know?
This one is a leverage, a 3 times leverage, DFE.
Yeah. The problem with some of these is they're selling weapons. And I'm not saying weapons aren't going to be a good thing, but the real big venture is going to move to how do we protect America with technology, right? Because we've now, if you're listening to the chatter, right? The chatter is Iran, the chatter is we're coming for you after we get done with Israel. Like ignoring all the politics and the screaming and the marches, they've made themselves clear, Hamas and Iran, that they're not going to stop at the US. So defense is the new thing. Cybersecurity is the new thing. We were talking about cyber for months. So if you want to go old tech, it has to be profitable, which brings me to a couple profitable ideas like Shopify. You can see like only profitable companies will bounce, right? And everybody who's a relevant company, Square, if you want to stay relevant, you're going to have to get profitable. So Square is going to have to focus on profitability, right? And if they stay profitable, they will bounce. But have they proven they can stay profitable, right? So you got to be like, what was old may not work. And then, but I'll just give you another example, Udemy, which is online learning, UDMY. So this company is a really great product and company, but you can see, go look at the longer term chart, right? Because they were losing money forever, the market had given up. Well, here you go. They finally proved that they can make money, right? And the valuation exploded, right? Because here you go. They're trading at like 3 times sales and profitable. So if they can now turn themselves profitable, this is how this is a stock that you can watch finally, right? Because it's in the right industry. You know, everybody's going to be anti-college. And so there's new trends that could start emerging but they have to be profitable tech companies. Otherwise, you've got to go speculate in the big caps, the Microsofts, the Apples, the Googles, the cybersecurity, and obviously oil and certain oil stocks, but again, it's I don't know that sector. So take it away now that
Yeah, I mean, you bring a good point. Educational stocks have really shown relative strength in the past month or so, which is a bit bizarre because they tend to outperform when the market expects a recession, since a lot of people just tend to go back to school when
no, but now you have the Ivy Leagues and you have all these kids marching for Palestine. Like people are fed up. But I'm saying you still have to be you have to be profitable, and no one's going to take you seriously right now with interest rates at 8% and and equity money getting more expensive. Those companies that can prove that they're profitable and grow. Yeah, you look at all these things starting to work.
I mean, the education stock, they've definitely then be making new 52-week highs, like way before the market bounced.
Yeah. So again, I'm not in that user base, but I know that I follow the founders of Udemy on Twitter. So I kind of heard them talking about what it takes to build a great company. You know, if you follow them on Twitter, you can see they're taking it seriously. So great tech companies that have great cash flow and decide to turn on the profit machines because they have to and can do it consistently 2-3 quarters through this type of market are going to start going up. And the Shopify numbers were staggering. Like honestly, I'm just looking through some of the numbers. They have 100 million Shop Pay users. Okay, that's not just people using Shopify. That's people that use Shopify to pay for shit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I think if they can prove 2 or 3 quarters of this type of stuff, now you realize that they're going to be a real long-term company again. But again, it's still a lot to prove, and there's no trend there. But they show you the power of profit. Udemy, same thing. These companies that are starting to read the script and go, no one's going to help us unless we help ourselves, right? Now, in defense, no one has to help them. America's scared and they're going to spend money and the government's going to throw a ton of money at this to win the election. It's going to be about fear and the border and everything they didn't take seriously before. And so I think you're just going to build a new watch list. And I think you're just going to see a lot of new leadership. But at the same time, Microsoft was really impressive, Ivan. Is there anything else that stood out to you?
I mean, there's so many like new groups that are starting to work. Obviously, AMD, I mean, it wasn't like a spectacular or big report. What really mattered is the market reaction. Pretty big high volume candle closed above its 20, 50, 200-day moving average, and then follow through. The kind of
I think XLK is like better than QQQ right now. That's the one I use for indexing with FREC and my direct indexing. And you know, it held where it needed to held. It's very close to all-time highs.
Yeah, I mean they look kind of similar, but
yeah, mostly similar. But in my direct index, I can only use
Spotify is acting constructively. They went up after their last earnings.
You know, I love them. I just
50, setting up again.
I just don't think they have massive upside, right? I mean, they're not cheap.
33.
Right? It's great to buy that brand when it was like 15 billion. It's undervalued, and I think at 30 billion, like there's very little risk. I just don't know what the catalyst for it is to get to 100 billion.
It would be education, Howard. Since all would be education, since all of the educational related stocks are going up, you know.
Oh yeah, I'm just saying. I'd rather index. Like I'm looking for clear leaderships, and and for me, it's going to be defense. It's going to be drugs. It's going to be cybersecurity. I don't really have expertise. And here's another good one. This is the ringleader for the degenerate economy, as I've been talking to DraftKings. It's a clear. Not clear. I'm just saying it's obvious that people believe because that's a big volume spike too. Yeah, they're barely making money though, so they got a lot to prove. I don't know. It wouldn't be the first place I go to buy a new stock, but it is proof that the degenerate economy is alive. And here's the other thing I like about DraftKings is as the world shrinks when we're not global and you need growth internally, it's just gambling is the one thing, you know, and they have the power of the customer. So I am rather bullish. don't really care to add. You know, I own a little bit, but I don't really care to add
What's
here.
your take on all the crypto plays as of right now, since they've been perking up for the past month or so?
Yeah, so most of my allocation is to funds. I have a little Bitcoin and I have a little Ethereum, but most of our portfolio is into funds. And I just tell you, man, it was dark. I think the war. I, I shared something today. Anything that you can't print, right? Gold, Bitcoin, companies with great cash flow. Like you saw the things that bounced the most were either the most illiquid, unprofitable things, which I don't really think is interesting, or things that showed they can make a profit. And then Bitcoin, you can't make more Bitcoin. And so, Bitcoin 35,000. And as I mentioned last week, Solana, because Solana is a speedy network, and I think, a cross-border payments type product is, especially with the war and with a new form of panic, I think people want some kind of a decentralized wallet. And I think the tech is finally getting to that point. And then you have the war that kind of just turns everybody into thinking, how are we going to use this stuff? So I don't know. I'm not super bullish on crypto. I just believe that you're showing its ultimate feature, which is a kind of digital gold.
So okay, when you're
anything
saying,
you can't print, I
okay,
think is okay. It doesn't interest me that much, but I think what you can't print are profits, and I think companies that can turn on the profits here and flex that they can take a 10-year unprofitable thing and turn it on into be profitable with good margins is interesting. So I think what's really exciting is that we bounced, right?
oh,
And we bounced where we should have bounced. Did the S&P do the same thing? It bounced right where it needed to bounce?
pretty much, yeah. I mean, they basically went down to their a little bit below their year-to-date
Yeah.
view
I
up.
mean, again, you want to trade against that 400 level, I guess you trade against it, right? Like if we lose those levels, I think you got to go back and be careful. But, I'm not good enough trader to like do all that stuff and watch everything. I
I
think it
mean,
still pays.
anything is possible. Obviously, the indices are still in a lower highs, lower lows formation.
Yeah, and we're rallying into resistance. It's not like some breakout.
But the big difference is really those 3 accumulation days in Russell 2000, something that we haven't seen since the summer. I think to me, this is the big difference. The question is, is it sustainable? Can it continue higher? We'll see in the next.
Yeah, I mean, the most bullish thing you can do is keep going because everybody's waiting.
Yeah, I mean, so many people were caught unprepared, underinvested or short.
Including myself. Yeah.
So the market definitely, it basically like staged a lockout rally where it just didn't even pull back for a little bit to let people in.
Yeah.
And this is why I think we might have an underlying bit in the tape for the next few weeks, because a lot of people are eager to get back in.
Right. And then there's going to be a lot of smarty pants that want to short right here.
Yeah, definitely. There's still people that want to short.
Yeah.
So I think the benefit
there is and no one would have bet that we could get the rally into a war, but the markets do. And by the way, the page 10 news that became the news was the attack on Israel and America's reaction to it. The young people going out no one predicted this type of behavior, and no one had that on the front page of their news a month ago is happening. And no one could have predicted the LGBTQ crowd would have pivoted towards Palestine, and the Democrats would have, so again, I think there's a wall of worry now working in the favor of the markets. And there's a clear drumbeat that you can bet on, which is defense. You can bet on spending.
How are you playing defense?
What's that?
How are you playing the defense trend?
I'm not qualified. I just don't know. I think venture capitalists are just going to put all their money and go to Washington and just try and get contracts to spend money. I think as an investor, I'm just indexed. I don't even know what these companies do.
Mm-hmm.
Right? and who they're going to be able to sell. I don't think it'll be that clear because you're going to have these people that say, why are we letting Lockheed Martin sell stuff to Iran or Russia? Wherever they're selling this stuff, I think everybody's going to come under a microscope. So I don't think there's any clear signal there. I'm just saying in the venture community, think about all the money that's going to go into defense, right? What's this one? FTI Aviation. Okay, well, that's a clear leader. What they must do something.
I don't know exactly what they do.
Yeah, but go look at that. Look at the profits there. So it's trading at 15 times earnings. Where's the monthly?
It's all-time highs.
Wow. Okay, I got to put that on my list. Hang on. FTAI. Just pull that one out. Yeah. So what do they do? How did you find that one?
Well, it's one of the leaders. First of all, it's on my Momentum 40 list, but it's also one of the leaders in the group. And we have
modules material. They offer aircraft operation, engine maintenance, aircraft leasing, engine leasing, and it's defense. And guess what? 700 followers, 4 billion, 700 followers. That's
yeah. Here's another one. DRS.
Yeah, that's an interesting
navigation
one.
System, ground support system, also
ground support system. But is that military?
It's in that same group, aerospace and defense.
Okay, what is it called? DRS?
DRS.
I got DR, I'm following that.
And
it's got a 5 billion market cap, 4,000 followers.
It's not cheap, it's 26 times. Cheap. Yeah. And then we have.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, you're going to have to recalibrate. So it's the same thing on social media. Everybody that you trusted, that you thought you knew, including me, like people follow me and they didn't know I was pro-Israel and I stand. So you're going to have to rejigger your whole social feed. You're going to have to rejigger a lot of behavior now, post October 7th. So anyways, we'll come back and let's look up some new ones for next week.
Okay. All right. Let's call it a day then. All right.
Yeah, let's call it a day, buddy. Thanks for doing it. Where are you positioned right now?
I'm long, about 30% long, but I'm swinging. So.
All right. Have a great week, buddy.
You too, Hart.